Welcome back, folks. Today I've got a brand new printer in the shop. It's the Plus4 from Qidi Tech. A couple weeks back I reached out to Qidi to see if they'd be interested in sending one over for testing, and they loved the idea. So here it is, ready to unbox and put through its paces. Now this thing comes with some serious features like an actively heated, fully enclosed chamber that can reach up to 65 Celsius, which makes it great for high temp materials. It also features a dual Z-axis with independent lead screw motors that add just a little bit of extra stability for smoother and more reliable prints. One of the standout features is its high temp printing capability. It has a hot end in it that can reach 370 degrees Celsius. That means it can handle everything from PLA and PETG to those industrial grade materials like PAHT and PPS carbon fiber. And I've got a few test prints lined up to see how it performs, and I did run into a few small issues with the Z offset, and something I've seen others mention as well, so we'll go over that a little bit later on and what I did to fix it. For now, let's get this thing unboxed, set up, and see what it's all about. Alright, in this little box here, it looks like we've got our spool holder. It sits up top on the back there. Power cord, and the other part to our spool holder. So this just pops right off like that. We'll get that set up in a second. Inside of here, it looks like they included some black PLA, a little tiny spool, and then a couple instructions on installing your door handles. Inside the box, it also comes with a little screwdriver and a metal scraper, a little glue stick, an Ethernet cable, a 7mm wrench, and a couple Allen wrenches, as well as an inline fuse. It also comes with a little bit of thermal grease and some lubricant oil. And the last thing inside of the box is our touchscreen. This is pretty easy to install, assuming we get this set up the right way. You've just got a little cable here, slides into this slot on the back. Just like that, our screen is attached. All right, and then the spool holder simply slides into place. And this gets secured like that. And our lid can slide into place. All right, I just want to give you a little quick size comparison before we get everything booted up and tested. So there's our A1 mini build plate on top of the Plus4 build plate, and then the P1P build plate on top of the Plus4. It is a double-sided textured PEI build plate, and there are little reference points in the back here to help guide you into place. All right, I'm gonna get this plugged in, and I put the screen on upside down. We're going to start off with English. We're going to do next. Now it's guiding us to remove all of the ties that are inside of the machine. Inside of the back there's a little carbon filter. We'll open up our little bag. We can set it inside of here. And then this just clicks back into place. Next, it's going to have us unscrew the 4 bolts in the bed, and those are going to be here, 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 and here. And it says, about to move platform, please make sure the platform is clean and unlocked. Now it's doing an initialize platform and nozzle position. At least that's what it tells me on the screen. All right, next it's asking us to install the spool holder. We've done that. There's a little piece of PTFE tubing it's going to have us insert into the side. The first print, I'm just going to load up some bamboo PETG HF. Set the corresponding nozzle temperature. I am going to install the top again. All right, in less than a minute, we've got our temperature up to, or our nozzle up to temperature. I'm going to click load, hit next, and complete. Now it's going to run an input shaper. All right, next it's going to have us perform our auto bed leveling. To do that, we're going to come into Tool, Auto Bed Level, And then it wants to know the temperature that you normally print at. So if you're normally printing with ABS, I would recommend doing this at around 100. Since we're going to do PETG right now, I'm going to set it to 70. When I go to print some ABS in the future, I will redo this bed leveling at 100. So that was stuck back there, as you probably just saw. Not too big of a deal. I was able to clean it out. Hopefully that doesn't do that every time. All right, I'm going to turn off noise cancellation on the microphone now and set you next to the machine. This is a very quiet machine when it's running. Like, this is something I could sit in my office, or I mean even a bedroom for that matter, and not really be too concerned about it, especially with the door once you shut it. It's a very quiet machine. Alright, I'm going to let this thing get a little bit further on. We'll check back in on it in 20 or 30 minutes. So we've got 53 minutes left. We're about 40% complete. So far, it looks amazing. I mean, this is straight out of the box. I haven't done anything to it. I'm probably not helping it right now by opening the door and giving it a draft. But yeah, I'm very, very pleased with this right out of the box, and it's super quiet. I've had it running here, well, for the last 35 minutes while I'm working on the computer, and I don't even really notice it going. So I already know that it had some issues with it, likely just due to the cooling settings. The bottom layer looks great. It's just those overhangs. Let me get a little bit of a closer view of it. So hopefully we're able to see a little bit better inside. Just cooling settings. I use the stock settings from the Bamboo PETG HF over from my A1 Mini, I think. So definitely needs a little bit of tweaking there, but the top surface quality, everything else, there's no defects around any of the sides or anything like that. It was overall a very, very good quality print until it started with this overhang here. I'm going to play around with the cooling settings a little bit more and see if we can't get one of these to print out with a little bit of a better overhang. So I went ahead and made two modifications in the slicer. I turned on a feature in the quality tab down at the bottom. Under overhangs, it's called reverse on even, and that's supposed to drastically improve the steep overhangs and reduce part warping. The other thing I did is change my cooling settings to the recommended settings from Qidi for their PETG. I don't know how well that's going to perform considering they are actually lower than the PETG HF recommends, but we're going to start off with this and see how it works. Alright, this is the second one, and I can't really blame the Qidi for this, because I had this exact same issue on the P1P and the A1 Minis, where we get that poor overhang right off the bat there. So while I wasn't able to get the overhangs on this looking perfect in this test, I am going to play around with it a little bit more, because it is going to be a machine that does print these for me. I did get a successful print here. See, all the top layers look good. Everything came out great on this. No artifacts or anything on the side. Then I printed the same thing out of some Flash Forge PETG carbon fiber. And you can see that looks flawless as well. So what I'm going to do now is load up some ABS from Cookie Cat. I picked this up a few weeks ago from Micro Center, about $34 for the spool. I could have got a regular color, but I figured this would be a little more fun. Loading and unloading on this is really easy. There's a button up here to replace filament. It'll go through a little process where it warms it up, and then you can really just pull the filament out the back. Then loading new filament in just goes into the PTFE tube on the side. We'll load it all the way up, and then we can tap load. Please confirm filament has entered the nozzle. And this is ABS. Should be okay with 250 load. All right, so that actually worked pretty well. One thing I want to do is preheat our bed. This can go down to 140. Preheat the bed to 100, get it up to that temperature, and then I'm going to rerun that bed mesh that we did before, so it is calibrated for 100°C. All right, we've reached 100 degrees. It's been sitting there for a minute or two, so I'm going to do auto bed leveling. I'm going to set it for that 100 and hit go. So if we had just gone into the tools and hit bed leveling, we could have also done it that way and hit 100 degrees and it would have done its thing, but both ways work. All right, auto bed leveling is complete, and I've got a test print sliced up and ready to go. I'm just using Qidi's stock profiles. I've changed the strength settings around a little bit, but aside from that, I'm using their stock speeds and their generic ABS profile. And this is a print in place model. It's a little SD card holder. I've printed it before on the Adventure 5M Pro. Essentially, it's just this little holder here. It's got some text on the bottom surface and some hinges, so we'll see how this performs out of ABS. For this particular print, I am going to leave the door shut because it's ABS, and we're going to give it the best possible chance. I did not put a brim on this or anything, or just... Yikes. Stop. Well, that's fun. How did that happen? Well, you saw it live here. We just scraped the hell out of that build plate though. We just performed the automatic bed leveling, which you can see pretty clearly here on the build plate. It just scraped the PEI coating right off of it. Alright, we're going to rerun it again. This time I'm going to be inside the Z offset window. Doesn't seem like I can do anything right now. Interesting. So it doesn't even seem like I had to readjust the Z offset. It's printing fine where it was, which is slightly concerning. May have this set slightly too fast for ABS. The Qidi doesn't have any different profiles or speeds or anything like that for the different filament types, so I'm just rolling with their stock one. Thinking to get a little bit of a closer look. All right, we're about 22% in, and so far it's looking great. I don't see any signs of it lifting off the build plate, no signs of warping or anything like that. So we'll check back in on it in a little bit. All right, so this thing completed in 53 minutes overall. It was a 47-minute, 59-second print, so about 4 or 5 minutes in calibrations. All right, off the build plate. I mean, that is nearly perfect. There's a little bit of like artifacts along the sides here. You can see them a little bit more as you get towards the front. This looks really cool with that filament too, the way it was printed like this. You can get that even color going all the way up, so when you close it up, it almost gives you like that perfect even two-tone box. I mean, the surface finish on the inside is just phenomenal. So that's ABS on the Qidi Plus4. So I couldn't leave you with just a single ABS print, especially after the first little mess up that we had there. I wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to happen again. So what I'm printing now is a multi-board. This one's going to really test the ABS, I think, because there's very little contact that's actually on the build plate for the multi-board prints. Just those little pieces there, and then it builds up from that. So we'll see how well this adheres, especially with that little mess up there that it did in the middle of the build plate. This is using Sunlu's generic ABS. I'm using the same Qidi generic ABS profile that comes with their slicer, and so far so good. And for those who are curious, we're printing at 250 Celsius on the nozzle for the first layer. Every layer after that will be 260, and the build plate is at 90. I don't have the heated chamber on or anything, and right now the screen is telling me it's sitting around 42. All right, we're about 34% of the way done with this print. Got about 3 hours left, but in that back corner where it's completing right now, it's already started to lift off of the build plate a little bit, probably by about 1/8 of an inch or something. And it looks like so far it's just that back corner over there that has started to lift up. So I'll let it continue on for a little bit. We'll see if any other parts of it start to lift up. All right, so I'm going to cancel this here. See the bottom surface on this, again, just like all the other prints, looks phenomenal. Our only issue with this one is that it just so happened to be ABS, and ABS is prone to warping, and this doesn't have anything on the build plate. And I do have one more thing that I wanted to test on this out of ABS, and it's a part that I actually need, and I'll show you that in a little bit when this finishes. So we're at 99%, less than a minute left on this particular print. I've been talking with my buddy Aaron over at 802 Garage, as he's got the Plus4 and he's had it for a little while. He's actually the one who recommended that I get one. He said it may be related to an issue with Qidi's G-code, so I've changed some of the G-code around with his recommendations. We're gonna pull this off the build plate in a minute once it cools down, and then rerun it with the new configuration and see if that makes any difference. All right, so I've updated those settings. We got our first part out of there. Overall looks fine. Obviously we had that initial error on the build plate, but we'll take a look at both of them afterwards. This is with basically a modified G-code that prevents the machine from automatically updating the Z offset every single time. And hopefully that is what is needed to continue making this work the right way. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be printing just fine. Layer lines all look good. All right, so that one in the background is finishing up, but I thought we'd take a look at the first one. Obviously, we printed over the spot in the build plate where it gouged it, so we've got that marking there. Overall though, there is no ringing on this at all. It's just a perfectly smooth piece. The top surface right here, there's a little bit of over extrusion, it looks like, on that corner there, but aside from that, this was like 54 minutes out of ABS. So I hope Qidi is able to take some of the implementations that Aaron from 802 Garage shared with me and that I've implemented here, and put that into a software update or firmware update, something like that, so we don't run into this issue. So I've got the Plus4 set up now to do some PETG carbon fiber, and this is after our whole bed scrape debacle there with the ABS, so I'm curious to see. I haven't done any sort of adjustments. I just threw the print into the slicer with the PETG carbon fiber profile that I'd used before. No bed leveling, I just let this do its thing. Yeah, and that looks perfect on the build plate. Get you in for a little closer view. What it's printing right now is just a throat plate for a bandsaw. Mine broke about 1.5 years ago, and when I got my first printer, I actually redesigned it, and this is what we're printing out now. So aside from those little imperfections that were caused by us scraping the build plate, I mean, this came out basically flawless. There are no artifacts on the sides. Look how clean that is. The carbon fiber reinforced filament does help to hide some imperfections in the layer lines, but overall, this thing is just knocking it out of the park. Since a lot of you are going to be printing with PLA, I decided I should probably also test this with some PLA. So I loaded up some Elegoo Rapid PLA. I used Qidi's generic PLA Rapido profile and sent it on its way. And this is what we got. This finished up overnight. I know I keep picking white, harder color to see, but a little bit of artifacts up here. I printed this at a 0.26 millimeter layer height. Bottom surface, we've obviously got some imperfections from where the, build plate mishaps happened. But 2 walls, 0.26 millimeter layer height. Got ourselves a nice little basket here. This was sized at like 252 millimeters wide, so we still had quite a bit of room on either side. It did take about 6 hours though. We can get a good shot of the bottom surface here. You can see a little bit of stringing up there at the top where it got real thin. Bottom surface is really, really clean. So yeah, PLA works great. This printed for about 2 hours with the door completely shut, and it was getting up to about 41 Celsius in there. So I left it cracked open about 2 inches or so and let the print finish that way. Real quick, I want to talk about what we think might be going on with the Plus4 and the whole Z offset thing. When you first boot up the machine, it has you go through a series of calibration features, such as the input shaping and the auto bed leveling. Inside of that auto bed leveling, it asks you to put in a temperature that you are printing at. So I put in 70 degrees Celsius for the PETG that we were using. After I finished up my test with the PETG, I moved on to ABS and reran that test, changing it to 100 degrees Celsius on the bed. Now, the first print that I did with ABS, you noticed it scraped on the build plate. After talking with Aaron at 802 Garage, we kind of came to the conclusion that maybe performing that auto bed leveling function when you're switching filaments actually compounds the Z offset that it's getting on top of each other. So the original 70 degrees Celsius and the ABS one at 100 compounded together, causing it to scrape into the bed. And every time that I ran that to try to get the Z offset a little bit better, it just made it worse and worse. So I ended up needing something like a 0.220 Z offset inside of the printer's screen, which after moving the printer over here, I don't need a Z offset. So I think something within that auto bed leveling function caused it to compound on top of each other. I'm not 100% sure on this. It's something that's still being worked on at this time. If you look at the Qidi Reddit or the Discord, you'll see I'm not the only one that's been having this issue. So I'm hoping with this information and some of the stuff that we've compiled together just from doing our tests today that hopefully we've got everything figured out. So hopefully this information can be helpful to Qidi and anybody who has the Plus4 and is experiencing that nozzle scraping on the bed. Don't use that auto bed leveling feature and see how that works. There is also a few lines of code you can comment out if you're familiar with Clipper and working with G-code. It's 6 lines of code inside of the G-code macro configuration file, and doing that plus moving the printer over here, essentially resetting it, seems to have completely fixed my issue. Again, I'm running at a 0.0 Z offset now, and everything is working just fine. Overall, I'm very happy with the quality of the prints the Plus4 is putting out so far. I am going to be doing more tests with the ABS, PETG. I'm going to be throwing some nylon carbon fiber in there, more PETG carbon fiber, just to run it through its paces. I really want to see what this machine is good at, what it's not good at. So if there are any other issues that I do find while running my tests, you will be the first to know. And I just want to thank Qidi for sponsoring today's video and sending over the Plus4 for testing and review on the channel. We're definitely going to be seeing a lot more of this printer on the channel in the upcoming months. I've got some PPS carbon fiber coming. It's fairly expensive stuff, but I do want to test this machine's capabilities, and I figured this is one of the perfect filaments to do that with. And if you want to pick up one of the Plus4s for yourself, you can use the link down in the description below. It'll take you to their Amazon listing where you can save $50 off the current price of $849, and that brings it down to $799 for a printer that's got a 12 by 12 by 11 inch build volume and can print pretty much anything you can throw at it. And I do want to say, although Qidi is sponsoring the video in terms of sending the printer out for a review, they did not pay me anything to say anything good or bad about the printer. Obviously, they wouldn't pay me to say anything bad about it, but I just felt the need to clarify that. If you're interested in seeing more of the Plus4, along with all the other printers on the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And if you enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows you want to see more videos like this. Until next time, folks, take care.